We are just over a month away until the Huskers take on the Golden Gophers on the road in Minnesota, 7 p.m. Thursday. We're covering all the position rooms, and the wide receivers the Huskers have this season are actually really exciting. Hit that like and let us know in the comments, which receiver are you most excited to see this season? Gary, I'm most excited about Malachi Coleman, but let's save him for closer to the end. Let's start with arguably the star of the spring game, Billy White Shoes Kemp. Or Bully Kemp. I'm still working on his nickname. What do you think's in store for him this season? Because it looks like a lot.
Yeah, when you look at his highlights from Virginia, and then you see how they utilized him and the amount of targets he got, especially early on from Sims specifically in the first half of that red and white game, he stands out as a prototypical slot receiver to me from what I see. And it looks like that's exactly how they're looking at using him, how he was utilized in the spring game. It's common for tight ends, slot guys, and sometimes backs coming out of the backfield for typically younger quarterbacks. I know Sims isn't younger, but in a new offense, again, the offensive line, you never know. It just looks like he's one of those prototypical couple steps and let the ball go. He's going to be a first read in a lot of situations, and I think he fits that position really well. So I could see it working well all the way around for the offense for Sims, comfort, a safety blanket, so to speak, for Sims. And, until defenses force Sims and the offense to go other ways, I think, especially early on in the season, he'll look a lot kind of like Marcus Washington did last year with the frequency that he was targeted.
Yeah, just a lot shorter. He's smaller for receivers, but
maybe like a little shiftier, wouldn't you say?
Very shifty, and I was calling him Bully Kemp because he plays like he's 6'5", not scared of anybody.
Big. He's not afraid to go over the middle. He's not afraid of contact. Seems to have good hands even in traffic. So, I think it sets up nice when he's going to be playing with Washington most likely to start. And then, who knows what you're going to get at some of the wider wide receivers. I think some of that's going to come down to who can block better. There's definitely some speed coming in, but I think early on, between maybe a tight end or two, him and Washington, they'll be the primary targets for the first few weeks until the offense kind of gets settled in and comfortable running multiple sets or multiple looks.
The Huskers also have Xavier Bets coming back and Marcus Washington. Which of these two guys do you think is going to have the better year? Because the way I see it, Marcus Washington is a little bit more of a safe bet, and then Xavier Bets is the higher ceiling guy.
For sure. And Xavier Bets, like we saw specifically in the COVID year when, injuries were kind of a factor with Martinez and there was a lot more Luke McCaffrey between teams really focusing on the quarterback run. And at the time we still had in Wan'Dale Robinson, they used him a fair amount in the passing game, but they also used him a lot in the run game. So I could see, just based on what we saw when we went back and looked at Satterfield's style of offense and how much tight ends were shifted into motion using the running game and receivers were actually used as running backs, I could see them using him because he's another guy that is a pretty physical receiver. He's another guy I could see getting a lot of time just because he's not afraid to block. He's not afraid to get his head in there and at least give the effort. And if Rule and Satterfield are going to try to establish the run and set the tone and set the pace as much as they would like to do, they're going to be, of course, it's nice to have fast guys that can blow the top off the defense and sure-handed guys, but when you're trying to really set the tone for a game, specifically in the fourth quarter, if you've got a lead, you're trying to carry it out and you're really relying on the running game, you're going to need guys that can block on the edges more so than you're going to need guys that can get 40 yards downfield and catch deep balls or be real sharp route runners. And I think he could really excel in the run game, both as a blocker and as a ball carrier.
Now, last season, first touchdown of the season versus Northwestern, IGC goes up like Clifford Franklin, comes down with it.
Football's a one-man cold.
And then bang, it seemed like we never heard from him again as he had issues with Mickey Joseph specifically. I think he wasn't getting the playing time that he wanted, if I remember correctly. He's back, and I couldn't be happier because this guy's a true possession receiver, and I feel like that's what's missing. Not that Washington can't do possession as well, but IGC is just one of those 50-50 ball guys.
Yeah, I go back and forth with him on why he came back. If it came out after the Northwestern game that first deep touchdown pass, Casey didn't even think it was him he was throwing the ball to. From the sounds of it, he was more of like a decoy, like a last read, and as the pocket was starting to close in on him, he saw a guy deep, threw it up to him, didn't realize until after the fact that it was him. And then, like you said, it was a little bit more that game, but not much from him the rest of the week. And within a few weeks, he transferred out. It makes me wonder, was he not getting offers? Was the interest not there? And Rule and his staff looking to try to maintain as much as they could from the previous staff, try to not be so heavy. You look at how many true freshmen wide receivers we have coming in, it's a lot. So is it more of a door still open? Kind of the same thing with Xavier Bets. He transferred out, or entered the portal, I should say, and they talked him into coming back. So did they bring these guys back, especially in IGC's scenario, where obviously they felt they were promised something by the previous staff that wasn't delivered on, so they left, not just left, but left early? Is that promise or that kind of handshake agreement that, yeah, he'll be a part of the offense, was that part of it for him coming back? Or was it, look, we're not going to promise you anything. That's what went wrong with the last staff, but we need depth and we need some veterans, so to speak, at this position. And if he can outperform all these freshmen we're bringing in and he can do his thing, then he'll get time. I don't know exactly what the circumstances were of him coming back, but I agree with you. I mean, he seems to be able to play at that level. I don't know if he has the attitude or maybe like the lack of ego or the humbleness that you would need to grind out, especially if you look at early on, kind of like what we were saying last year on the offensive side, new staff, new system, new quarterback, all these things coming into play. It's going to be hard to tell, where they got 11, 12 wide receivers on the depth chart right now, to go from top to bottom and say, you're going to get this many targets, you're going to get this many, and dwindle it down and not have, I don't think that happens. So I think he can be utilized if they think that he is talented enough to make him a top priority, or, even a top 4 or 5 priority to get a handful of targets a game. I'll be real curious to see how it plays out as the season goes on into week 3, 4, and 5. If he has a lot of targets, if he starts out with a lot and it dwindles down, how he handles that, or if it takes a while to get him involved, if he's patient enough to wait for it and capitalize on the opportunities when they do come.
So I can't wait any longer. Malachi Coleman looks to be the real deal. He's the first homegrown talent that I can remember going into a season as a freshman I'm actually excited to watch play. Do you think as a freshman he's going to step into Palmer's lead receiver role, or is that going to take some time?
I think he'll definitely have the opportunity to. I think the staff is going to want him to. I'm big on the speed guys because of that, especially in the Big Ten, and especially if the run game is the focal point of the offense, where you can get guys down in the box, you can get one highs, you can get man-to-man a lot, different things like that. If you've got guys like we saw last year where Palmer, you left him man-to-man, sometimes even if you had one guy over the top, once he got going, it was over with. You could argue that he single-handedly won us a couple games, including the Iowa game. And I think whether Rule is going into the season, or Satterfield or whoever on the staff wanting that or not, if it's there, you capitalize on it. We've got some track stars at the wide receiver position. Obviously, with his height, he's played defense in high school. I mean, Michigan wanted him, Colorado wanted him. There was other schools, that were in the mix talking to him. A lot of people wanted him to play defense. So, the physicality's there, the athleticism obviously is there, the speed's there. You watch his highlights, he obviously has the hands. I think there's a really good argument that he would be the guy going into the season that you would expect that from. I personally kind of lean more towards Turner, just because I feel like he's even faster, a little more shifty than he is. But, when you factor in the height and the physicality and things like that, that could play a bigger role. And again, you got to go back to, if they're going to run as heavy as they're planning on running, how good are these guys out of the backfield when they come in motion on design run plays for the receivers, and how well are they going to be able to block downfield and on the edges to seal off for the actual running backs to turn corners and get downfield. So I would argue, yeah, he probably is the favorite as far as the coaching staff it goes, and I would almost guarantee the majority of the fans look at him for that. But it'd be interesting to see as practice and camp goes on, leading up, what you hear from the coaches of what they're seeing in practice and who they're talking about the most, who's standing out. And then again, first couple games in, to see who not only they're designing plays for, but who Sims starts looking for early.
Yeah, man, for me, it's his physicality that sells it. He's got the body, he's got the height, he's got that top end speed. 4.3, 840 is nuts with his size, but his physicality on defense just leads me to believe that he's also going to be on the fast track to being a good blocker at the wide receiver position, which could just solidify his reps. Don't you think?
Yeah. I think it's going to come down to who they can rely on more between the blocking, holding on to balls. You know, that was one of the few issues that we saw with Palmer was tend to drop balls, especially over the middle if the defense was bearing down on him. Just for reference point, looking back, Palmer was a 4.33 40 time with a 100-yard time of 10.42. Between Coleman, Turner, and Lloyd, they've got 4.38, 4.38, 4.4, but their 100-meter times are Coleman's is a 10.58, which is a tad slower than Palmer's was, but Turner's 10.25. He was the fastest 100-meter time in Texas. It was something I read like he had been top 5 in the history of Nebraska, and then Lloyd's a 10.4. So I mean, Turner and Lloyd are actually faster at 100-meter time than Palmer was. Coleman's a tad slower. You start getting into that close a time, it's not a day and night difference. But I mean, we talked so much last year about how fast he was, how he could blow the top off, how we haven't had a guy that fast that could get that open that often, and now we potentially have 3 or 4 of them. You know, I couldn't really find times on Doss, but I think the opportunity is going to be there, and it's going to be a true competition, especially for these freshmen, as who can block the best, who can route run the best, who has more to their route tree, who are you able to design more plays for, who's more sure-handed, who picks up the offense faster. I think there's going to be more those type of factors when you have a handful of guys that are so close in athletic and speed traits. You know what I mean? I think we'll have a lot better idea once practice not only really gets going, but we start getting the press conference or the after practice interviews from the position coaches and things, because you've still got, you know, guys like Jaden Doss and Jalen Lloyd. I know a lot of people talked about him out of West Side, especially around here. Another speed guy, Jeremiah Charles out of Texas. People were excited. That's one of the things that stood out to everybody when Rule first came in, was how heavy he was going after receivers, or the whole staff, obviously. A lot of these guys didn't have a lot of offers from other schools, but they all have that track background. They all had that speed. They all played football, so it's not like you got to teach them how to play football from square one. It's just there's a clear type that they were going after. And, you know, like I said, I'm really curious to see how Bryce Turner does. You're big on Malachi. I'm big on Malachi too, don't get me wrong. But that's not to take anything away. It's just we haven't heard much or don't know much about Jalen Lloyd, Demetrius Bell, Jeremiah Charles, Jaden Doss, things like that. You can find some stuff on them, but as far as where they're gonna fit or where you can anticipate them getting their reps in or being redshirted or what's gonna happen, it's just there's a lot of newcomers. And then, you know, you've got the I don't even know what year senior and Josh Fleeks that was one of the last recruits Rule made at Baylor. He just transferred. So you get, again, is this another, I want this guy because I know what he can do? Or is it, I liked him when I recruited him. We need some guys with experience on this team. We have a relationship with each other. I know how he can fit in certain sets or the offense overall or whatever. Just a lot to, like a lot of these other positions, just kind of be patient and see. But, you know, hopefully a lot comes out in the next couple weeks, because like you said, we've got just about a month left and it's going to be time to roll them out and see what we can do.
Well, hopefully that was informative. Let us know in the comments which position you'd like us to tackle next. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll see you guys next time. Go Big Red.